If you're a government contractor or even just a small business, you already know the truth that nobody puts on a highlight reel. You can win a contract, be profitable, have a solid margin, and still feel broke. Why? Because payroll doesn't wait, but government payments and client payments sometimes do. So today we're going to solve a very specific problem. Which banks and credit unions are actually the best for service-based government contractors in 2026? And how do you pick the right one for your stage? And here's why you need to stick around with me to the end. Because I'm going to give you a simple way to choose your bank in under 2 minutes based on how you run payroll, how you invoice, and how you plan to scale. No fluff, by the way. No, it depends without telling you what it depends on. And I'm only going to talk about the institutions we selected for 2026. So let's get into it. But before we get into it, we got to do this quick disclaimer because we're talking about finances. This video is educational only, not financial advice. Let me say that again. Educational only, not financial advice. You need to do your own due diligence. Make sure to verify current terms, eligibility, and fees directly with the institution. And make sure, by the way, that you talk with your own legal, your own counsel, your own accounting, your own CPA, your own business advisors. Do your own due diligence because this video is educational only, not financial advice. Now let's get back into it. You might be wondering why which bank you choose or which credit union you choose matters so much in government contracting. And here's why. In government contracting, you know the plot twist. Your bank is not just where you store money, it becomes part of your delivery system. Because most service contractors live in a predictable chaos loop. You pay people biweekly, monthly, however you pay them. You invoice after the period closes, the invoice gets reviewed and accepted, and then you get paid. And if your invoicing is slightly off, the payment clock can basically restart. That's why the best bank for a government contractor is rarely the one with the flashiest app. It's the one that helps you do 3 things that are beautiful but also boring. Move money safely, control access, and get you to real working capital when you need it. So when I say best bank, I mean a bank that supports strong ACH and wire controls, role-based permissions, dual approvals, alerts, fraud controls, easy exports for accounting, and a clear path to lines of credit and SBA lending as you scale. Now let's talk about the short list, and I'll tell you what each one is best for, and let's meet the contenders right now. And the first contender we have up is Chase Bank. If you want a national footprint, a banking ecosystem that scales cleanly as you add contracts, cards, and team members, Chase is often a strong fit. And the simple narrative is this. Chase tends to work well when you want to consolidate your operating banking and business cards into one. And if you want to grow into more sophisticated controls without changing banks every time you hit a new level. That's Chase Bank's strength. And if you're thinking, okay, but what about costs? The reason Chase stays on the list is that it's commonly used by small businesses because it can be a full service setup, and fee waivers may be available depending upon the account and how you choose to use it. Really, Chase is basically the, I want this to be boring and reliable choice. And remember, in government contracting, boring is a compliment. But what if your priority isn't convenience, it's credit? And if credit is your primary concern, Bank of America is who we're going to talk about next. Because Bank of America is the pick when you're more established and you care deeply about a path to working capital. Specifically, Bank of America is highlighted by us for its unsecured business line of credit pathway for qualified firms. And for service contractors, that matters because the line of credit is often your payroll shock absorber. It's a thing that keeps you from sweating through every acceptance delay or invoice hiccup. So why Bank of America? Well, if you already have steady revenue and you're trying to build a banking relationship that can translate into a meaningful revolving facility, this right here is a strong candidate. Now, let's talk about the bank that shows up when you want a very clear working capital lane. And since we're talking about working capital, we're talking about Wells Fargo. It makes our shortlist because it's commonly associated with a defined line of credit path and meaningful SBA presence. Here's how I want you to think about Wells Fargo as a service government contracting small business. If your next constraint is working capital, not demand, let me say that again, working capital, not demand, you want a bank that does 2 things. It doesn't get weird about the concept of a line of credit. And also it can support SBA conversations as you grow. Think about Wells Fargo like this. I would like a line of credit without solving a riddle. That's what Wells Fargo is, and that's the option you should take if that's what you're looking for. But what if you're a lean operator who just wants clean, efficient execution? So if this describes you, what we're talking about for you is US Bank. Why does it land on the short list for us? Well, it's a strong fit for lean service contractors with primarily digital transactions. In other words, if your world is mostly ACH, cards, and electronic payments, and by the way, you want low friction banking that exports cleanly into accounting documents, US Bank fits that operating model. This is a one you pick when you're not trying to impress anyone with your bank. You're trying to run payroll, pay vendors, and keep your books clean. Now, banks are great and they have their places, but also do credit unions. And some of the best relationships in small business can happen with credit unions. While many credit unions are local in nature, there are two national credit unions that we believe you should take a look at. The first one that makes our list is Navy Federal, and it's on our list for a very simple reason. If you qualify through military or DoD affiliation, it can be an excellent relationship institution. It's a top institution for those eligible owners and can be attractive for defense adjacent operators. So if you're eligible, Navy Federal can be worth exploring because service contractors often benefit from relationships, underwriting, and strong service, especially when you're building towards the ability to lend. But not everyone qualifies, and not everyone wants a military-linked institution. So here's another credit union on our shortlist. First Tech Federal Credit Union. First Tech is included as a business-friendly credit union option with published tiers and balanced thresholds. And it's a fit depending upon membership eligibility and footprint. The storyline here really is simple. If you want credit union relationship banking with business tooling and you qualify, First Tech is a strong option to compare side by side with big banks. Really, credit unions at the end of the day are like farmers markets. Sometimes you get better quality and better service, but you do have to qualify for entry. Now that we have the short list all out, the real question is, which one should you choose? Choosing a bank or a credit union really comes down to what you're trying to do and what stage of your business are you in. For instance, if you're early stage, 1 or 2 contracts, you're building processes, and you want an ecosystem that can scale with you as you add cards and controls, Chase is a strong starting point. However, if you're established, you have consistent revenue, and you care most about building a real working capital pathway, Bank of America or Wells Fargo are often the first 2 you should compare. If you run lean, your transactions are mostly digital, and you want efficient execution and clean accounting exports, well, US Bank is a strong fit. And if you qualify for credit union membership and you value relationship underwriting and service, then Navy Federal or First Tech can be great options to explore alongside the banks. Now, we get to this, and it's important to understand that most people don't even think about this when going after a bank account or a credit union account for the business, and it costs them money. If you want the best bank for government contracting, therefore, rather than wasting money, you need to think about selecting the bank that meets you and your company where you are. And that means if you want the best bank for government contracting businesses in 2026, you're not looking for hype. You're looking for an operating system. If you want the detailed breakdown on how to set up your financial operations, cash controls, and the other financial tools service government contracting businesses use to scale, come to our site, www.squaredcompass.com. I'll put it in the comments below. We laid it out step by step so that you can implement it without guessing. If you want to drop a comment, here's 3 things you could say. Are you prime heavy or are you sub heavy? Rough annual revenue range, and what is your average time it takes to get paid after invoicing? The group in the community and us can comment together on which banks we think would best meet your need. As always, if this helped you, please make sure to subscribe, like, comment, share, and I'll see you on the next one.